The inheritance nobody wanted. The world had forgotten the old soldier and he preferred it that way. His name was Captain Daniel Hayes, once a proud defender of Earth's borders during the first skirmishes with alien raiders. But now he lived a quiet life with his 12-year-old daughter, Lila, in a small apartment above a mechanic's shop. Daniel was not rich. He carried scars from battles most people had never heard of. His wife was gone, and Lila was all he had left. Together they lived a simple life, far from the power and wealth of the great corporations that ruled the stars. But everything changed the day a message arrived. It was a legal notice from a distant colony. A relative Daniel barely remembered had died, leaving him something strange in the will. An old abandoned space base hidden on the edge of the solar system. At first, Daniel thought it was a mistake. Who would give him such a thing and why? The lawyer explained only one detail. The base was ancient, older than the colony itself. No one had used it in centuries. When people in their town heard the news, they laughed. A broken space base? One man jeered. That's not an inheritance. That's garbage. They probably gave it to him because it's worthless. Another said, "What will you do with it, Captain?" "Patch the leaks yourself." Even Daniel's old army friends shook their heads. "Scrap metal, Hayes. Not worth the fuel to fly there." Lila, however, looked up at her father with wide, curious eyes. "Can we see it, Dad? Please?" Daniel hesitated. He had nothing else to leave her. If this base was all they had, maybe it was worth one last look. 2 weeks later they arrived. The journey was long and quiet, their small shuttle creaking as it crossed the black sea of stars. Finally, through the cockpit window, the base appeared. It floated near a dead moon, half hidden in shadows. The structure was massive but broken. Its outer walls were cracked, and pieces of metal drifted slowly around it like frozen ghosts. Lights that once glowed bright were long gone, leaving only darkness. Daniel sighed. They were right. "It's junk," but Lila pressed her face to the glass. "No, Dad, it's beautiful." They docked at one of the damaged ports and stepped inside. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars. The halls were silent, filled with broken screens, collapsed walls, and wires hanging like vines. Everywhere they looked, there were signs of decay. Daniel muttered, "A graveyard." But Lila's young eyes saw more. She walked ahead, her small footsteps echoing. She touched the walls, tracing strange symbols carved into the metal. Unlike the rest of the ruin, these markings still glowed faintly, as if whispering secrets to anyone willing to listen. "Dad?" she called softly. "Look at this." Daniel approached. The symbols formed a circle, and at its center was a door. It was different from the others, smooth, untouched by time. Daniel frowned. "Strange. This part looks alive." They tried to open it, but it would not move. Lila pressed her hand against the glowing symbols. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the walls trembled. The symbols flared to life, casting blue light across the dark hall. The door hissed open slowly, releasing a breath of air that smelled sharp and metallic. Daniel stepped back, his soldier's instincts warning him. "Lila, stay behind me." Inside was a chamber unlike the rest of the ruined base. It was clean, untouched by dust. Strange machines lined the walls, still humming with power. At the center stood a tall pillar covered in alien writing. Daniel whispered, "This isn't human technology." Before he could say more, the machines came alive. Lights blinked. Panels slid open. A calm voice echoed through the chamber, speaking in a language neither of them had ever heard. Lila gasped. "It's talking!" Daniel's hand went to his old sidearm. He hadn't drawn it in years, but now it felt natural in his grip. The voice changed suddenly, shifting into English. "Welcome, inheritors." Both father and daughter froze. The pillar glowed, projecting an image into the air, a map of stars, countless systems connected by golden lines. At the center of the map pulsed a single symbol, the base they now stood in. Daniel's heart pounded. "What is this place?" The voice answered, "You are standing within a fortress of the First Empire. This base was hidden for millennia, waiting for those who would claim it. Others may mock you, others may not see its worth, but what you inherit is power beyond worlds." Daniel and Lila exchanged a look. Their so-called worthless inheritance was no junkyard ruin. It was something far older, far greater than anyone imagined. For the first time in years, Daniel felt the thrill of battle rise in his blood. He did not yet understand what they had found, but deep in his heart he knew one thing. This was no gift. It was a responsibility, and the universe would soon come to claim it. Secrets in the shadows, the glowing pillar continued to hum, filling the chamber with light. Daniel Hayes and his daughter Lila stood frozen. The voice spoke again, calm yet powerful. Systems offline. Awakening process incomplete. Intruders detected. Daniel raised his old sidearm, scanning the corners of the chamber. Intruders? What does it mean? But the room was empty. Suddenly a hidden panel slid open on the far wall, and strange drones floated out. Their round bodies glowed faintly, and thin arms unfolded like knives. "Dad!" Lila cried, clutching his arm. Daniel aimed his pistol, heart racing. He hadn't fought in years, but his instincts never left him. The first drone buzzed forward. He fired. The shot echoed through the chamber, sparks exploding as the drone crashed to the ground. The others paused, their glowing eyes shifting from red to green. Then one by one they lowered their arms. A new voice emerged, this time warm and steady. "Defense units acknowledge command authority." Inheritor confirmed. Daniel blinked in shock. "They obeyed me." Lila's eyes widened. "Dad, they think you're their master." The drones retreated back into the walls, vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. Silence returned except for the low hum of the machines. Daniel holstered his weapon slowly. "This is no ordinary ruin, Lila. This place... It knows who we are." Lila's eyes shone with wonder. "It chose us." Over the next hours, father and daughter explored deeper into the base. Most of the outer sections were ruined, filled with collapsed walls, rust, and silence. But the inner chambers told a different story. Here the halls gleamed faintly. Doors slid open automatically at their approach. Lights flickered back to life after centuries of darkness, as if welcoming them home. At the center of one corridor, they found a vast control room. Screens lit up one by one, showing star charts, weapon systems, and energy flows. Ancient alien text scrolled across the displays. Daniel ran a hand over the console. "I don't understand half of this." Before he could finish, the same voice from earlier echoed again, now clear and fluent. "Welcome, Captain Hayes. Designation: Guardian. Access granted." Daniel froze. "Guardian? I never told it my name." Lila tilted her head. "Maybe it read your mind." Daniel shook his head, unease crawling up his spine. This base knew too much. They continued exploring until they reached another sealed chamber. Unlike the others, this one was heavy with strange locks. The door was carved with alien markings, glowing faint blue. Lila's small hand brushed across them. "It feels warm." The symbols pulsed as if responding to her touch. Suddenly, the locks hissed open, and the massive door slid back. Inside lay a hidden vault. Rows of strange machines filled the space. Weapons unlike anything Daniel had seen before rested on racks. Sleek cannons, glowing spears, and armor that shimmered like liquid light. At the center stood a pod, sealed with glass. Inside was a dark crystal pulsing faintly with power. The voice spoke again, but this time it sounded almost reverent. "Core fragment located. Guardian and heir must protect at all costs." Lila stared at the crystal, her voice trembling. "Dad, it's alive." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, pulling her back. "Stay away. We don't know what it can do." But the crystal pulsed harder, as if it had heard him. A wave of energy rippled through the chamber. For a moment, Daniel felt a weight pressing into his chest, as if unseen eyes were watching. Hours later, they returned to their shuttle to rest. Daniel sat quietly, rubbing his temples. Lila sat beside him, hugging her knees. "Why does everyone think this place is junk?" she asked softly. Daniel's gaze hardened. "Because they don't know what's hidden inside. If they did, they would already be here." He stood and looked out at the ruined halls of the base, now half awake with glowing lights. His soldier's instinct screamed at him. This was not just an inheritance. It was bait. Someone had left this place for him and Lila to find. But why, and more importantly, who else knew about it? That night, as they slept, far away on another world, a transmission was received. A shadowy figure studied the signal from the awakened base. Their eyes narrowed, lips curling into a cold smile. So, the fortress has awakened again, and humans have claimed it? The figure turned to their subordinates. Prepare the fleet. If the old base is truly active, it must not remain in human hands. Back in the base, Daniel awoke to the sound of the voice whispering again through the halls. Guardian. Danger approaches. You must awaken the full defenses. Daniel clenched his fists. He looked at his sleeping daughter beside him. Whatever secrets this ancient fortress held, one truth was now clear. They were not alone. The awakening of power, the base was no longer silent. Where once there had been only darkness and dust, now glowing corridors stretched across its heart. Machines hummed, doors slid open and voices whispered through the air. The ancient fortress was awakening, piece by piece. Daniel Hayes walked carefully through the control chamber, his eyes scanning the dozens of glowing screens. His daughter Lila followed, her small footsteps echoing in the metallic halls. The same calm voice greeted them once more. Guardian recognized. Air recognized. Defense systems awaiting activation. Daniel frowned. Defense systems? Against who? Lila's eyes were wide with wonder. Dad, it's like the base knows we're in danger. Daniel studied the controls, his soldier's instincts sharpening. He pressed one panel and a map of the system filled the screen. Dozens of glowing lines traced paths of ships moving through space. At the edge of the display, red symbols appeared. Foreign ships slowly moving closer. Daniel's chest tightened. So it's true. Someone's coming, the voice confirmed it. Unknown fleet approaching. Estimated time of arrival, 7 cycles. Lila tugged at her father's sleeve. 7 cycles? That's a week? Daniel nodded grimly. We don't have much time. They explored further, searching for what the base could truly do. In one chamber, they discovered long rows of strange pods. Daniel tapped one, and the glass shell hissed open. Inside lay a sleek battlesuit, shining with silver light. It looked both alien and familiar, as if designed for a human but enhanced beyond imagination. Lila whispered, "It looks alive." When Daniel touched it, the suit's chest lit up with a pulse of blue energy. The voice spoke again. Guardian combat suit unlocked. Sync in progress. The suit slid open and wrapped around Daniel's body before he could protest. He gasped as the armor sealed itself, fitting him perfectly. His scars, his pain, even the stiffness in his old muscles vanished under the armor's strength. Daniel flexed his arm. The metal responded like it was his own skin. He felt faster, stronger, younger. He turned to Lila. I can't believe this. It feels like I'm 20 again. Lila clapped her hands. Dad, you look like a hero. But Daniel's face was serious. This is no gift. This is a weapon. Meanwhile, in another section, Lila found something strange of her own. A smaller pod lit up when she touched it, projecting a small sphere of light that floated above her palm. Whoa, she gasped, giggling. Dad, look. It follows me, the voice explained. Air interface activated. Knowledge pathways opening. Lila's eyes glowed faintly as streams of alien symbols filled her mind. She stumbled, clutching her head. Daniel rushed to her. Lila, what's happening? She blinked, then smiled faintly. Dad, I can read it. I understand their language. Daniel stared in shock. The base wasn't just giving them weapons. It was teaching his daughter the secrets of a dead empire. Over the next days, father and daughter trained together. Daniel learned to control the battlesuit, using its enhanced strength to move heavy machinery and test the fortress defenses. The suit responded instantly to his thoughts, firing energy blasts and deploying shields. Lila, meanwhile, grew closer to the base's AI. She translated ancient commands, activated hidden sections, and even discovered how to grow food from the base's forgotten hydro gardens. She laughed as tiny green plants sprouted under her care. See, Dad, this place isn't just for fighting. It's for living too. Daniel gave a small smile. You may be right, Lila, but if that fleet really is coming, we'll need every weapon we can find. On the 7th night, the voice interrupted their training. Warning. Enemy fleet now within range. Weapons must be activated. Guardian, prepare for battle. The chamber shook as enormous turrets extended from the outer walls of the base. Long dormant cannons came alive, glowing with blue fire. Shield generators hummed, covering the fortress in a dome of shimmering light. Daniel stood in his battlesuit, heart pounding. Lila stood beside him, the glowing sphere floating around her head like a loyal companion. "Dad," she whispered, "they're here." Far beyond the base, in the blackness of space, dozens of alien ships emerged from the shadows. Their sleek forms glowed red, their weapons already warming. At the lead ship, a voice hissed across the comms. "The humans think they can claim the fortress. Fools. It belongs to us. Prepare to strike." Inside the base, Daniel tightened his fists. For years, people had mocked him, called him useless, said his inheritance was worthless. But now, standing in armor powered by a forgotten empire with his daughter at his side, he knew the truth. This was not a ruin. This was a weapon of destiny, and tonight it would awaken in full. The siege begins. The silence of space broke with fire. The alien fleet arrived like hungry wolves, their ships spreading into formation around the ancient base. Crimson lights glowed on their hulls, and their weapons charged with a low hum that echoed across the void. Inside the fortress, alarms blared. "Warning! Enemy fleet within attack range. Shields at 60%. Defensive systems awaiting command." Daniel Hayes stood tall in his silver battlesuit, his eyes fixed on the glowing star map. His daughter Lila stood beside him, her small sphere of light circling like a guardian angel. "Dad," she whispered, "they're coming." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then we hold this base no matter what." The first wave of fire struck. Red plasma bolts smashed against the fortress shields, shaking the entire structure. Dust rained down from the ceilings, and walls groaned as if the base itself was waking from a nightmare. Lila clutched the console. "The shield is dropping. It's at 40%. Daniel's voice was calm but firm. "Activate the outer cannons." The AI responded instantly. "Acknowledged." Firing sequence initiated. From the base's surface, massive turrets unfolded, their barrels glowing with ancient blue energy. Then they fired. Blazing beams of light cut through the dark, striking alien ships with terrifying precision. One enemy cruiser exploded instantly, its wreckage scattering into space. Another ship spun out of formation, crippled by a direct hit. Lila gasped, her eyes wide. It worked. But more ships filled the screen, circling like predators. Their commander snarled through the comms, "Human thieves! That fortress does not belong to you." Daniel replied coldly, "Then come and take it." The enemy swarmed. Smaller fighters darted forward, dodging turret fire, unleashing a rain of missiles. The fortress shook violently as explosions rocked its shields. Daniel gritted his teeth. "We can't just sit here. We need to fight back harder." Lila closed her eyes, letting the glowing sphere guide her hands across the console. Alien symbols flashed across the screen. "Dad, I can open the inner weapons." "There's something called the Star Lance." Daniel didn't hesitate. "Do it," the fortress roared to life. Deep beneath its core, ancient energy surged. A massive weapon unfolded from the central tower, its barrel glowing brighter than a sun. Lila's voice trembled. "Charging. It's going to take everything we've got." Daniel watched the enemy fleet closing in. His heartbeat matched the rising hum of the weapon. Then the fortress fired. A beam of pure energy lanced through space, tearing across the alien fleet. Ships shattered like glass, their remains burning in silence. The enemy commander's voice crackled with rage and fear. "Impossible. That weapon should not exist." Static cut him off as his ship was consumed by light. For a brief moment, silence returned. Smoke and debris drifted across the void. The fortress stood glowing, its shields weak, but holding. Daniel allowed himself a breath. "We did it." But Lila shook her head, eyes fixed on the star map. "No, Dad, we didn't. Look." Beyond the wreckage, larger ships were appearing. Heavier cruisers, black as shadow, sliding into position. Their weapons dwarfed the ones before. Daniel's chest tightened. "So, that was only their first wave." The AI's voice echoed through the chamber. "Warning, primary enemy fleet arriving. Shields at 15%. Core chamber activation required." Lila turned to her father, fear mixing with determination. "Dad, they keep saying core chamber. We have to find it." "Maybe that's the only way to win." Daniel nodded grimly. "Then we move. If this base has one last card to play, we need it now." They raced through the fortress as the second wave began its attack. The walls shook violently, sparks rained down, and distant explosions thundered through the halls. Drones appeared, guiding them like silent guardians. Doors opened automatically as if the base itself wanted them to reach their destination. At last, they stood before a massive sealed door deep in the core. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing brighter as Lila approached. She pressed her small hand to the markings. The door trembled, then slowly opened with a roar of ancient machinery. Inside was a chamber unlike anything they had seen before. A great crystal pulsed at the center, suspended in midair, its glow filling the entire room. Around it, thousands of alien symbols floated, forming circles of light. The AI's voice was softer now, almost reverent. "Guardian, Heir, the core awaits you. Only by awakening it can the fortress survive." Lila stepped forward, the light reflecting in her eyes. "Dad, it feels like it's calling me." Daniel reached for her hand. Then we answered together. Above them, the enemy fleet unleashed another barrage. Shields flickered, alarms blared, and the fortress groaned under the assault. But deep inside the core chamber, a different power was awakening, and soon, the universe would learn that mocking a soldier and his daughter had been their greatest mistake. The final revelation: the fortress shook like a dying beast. Alien fire rained down from every side, smashing against failing shields. Red alarms flashed across the walls, warning of collapse. Warning: shields at 5%. Critical failure imminent. Daniel Hayes stood in the core chamber, sweat dripping down his face. His battlesuit pulsed with power, but even he knew it wasn't enough. The alien fleet outside was too strong. Lila stood at the center of the room, her small hand hovering just inches away from the glowing crystal. Its light pulsed faster, almost like a heartbeat. "Dad," she whispered, "it wants me to touch it." Daniel clenched his fists. "No, it's dangerous. We don't know what it will do." The AI's voice echoed through the chamber. "Guardian, Heir, the core is the heart of the First Empire. Only with both of you can it awaken. If you do not, this fortress will fall. Humanity will fall." Daniel's heart pounded. He looked at his daughter, the one thing he had left in the universe. He had already lost his wife. Could he risk losing Lila too? But Lila's eyes were steady, braver than her years. "Dad, I'm not afraid. We have to trust it. We were chosen." Daniel swallowed hard. Then slowly he nodded. Together then, they stepped forward. Daniel placed one armored hand on the crystal. Lila pressed her small palm beside his. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the chamber exploded with light. Energy roared through the fortress, surging into every wall, every machine, every weapon. The dead base was no longer dead. It was alive, breathing again after thousands of years. The core projected a great hologram into the air, a council of shimmering alien figures, their forms tall and regal. Their voices spoke as one, deep and powerful. "Guardian, Heir, at last you awaken us." Daniel stiffened, his hand still on the crystal. Who are you?" The figures bowed slightly. "We are the memory of the First Empire. For 5,000 years, this fortress has waited for worthy inheritors. Many came, all failed. But you, a soldier with scars and a child with courage, you are chosen." Lila's eyes widened. "Chosen it for what?" "To rule," the voices said simply. "To protect, to lead. This fortress is not only a base, it is the throne of empires. Whoever commands the core commands the stars." Outside, the alien fleet fired again. But this time the fortress did not break. Instead, shimmering golden shields spread across its surface, brighter and stronger than before. Turrets roared to life, but they no longer fired one by one. They fired together, perfectly in sync, weaving beams of energy that tore through the enemy fleet like a storm. The enemy commander screamed over comms, "No! It cannot be controlled by humans. Destroy them!" But it was too late. The fortress had fully awakened. Inside, Daniel felt the core's power surge through him. His suit glowed brighter, and his movements became sharper. He felt strength far beyond anything human. Lila gasped as symbols filled her vision, her mind connecting to the vast knowledge of the First Empire. She saw blueprints of entire worlds, maps of hidden star systems, and histories long forgotten. "Dad," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "I can see everything, the knowledge of thousands of years. It's all here." Daniel squeezed her hand. "Then let's use it." The fortress unleashed its final weapon. From its center, the star lance fired again, but this time the beam split into dozens, each one seeking a different target. The enemy fleet lit up with fire. Ship after ship exploded, shattered, or fled into the darkness. Within minutes, the battlefield was silent. Only wreckage floated where the fleet had been. The enemy was gone. Silence filled the chamber. Daniel let out a slow breath, lowering his hand from the crystal. The alien figures still shimmered in the air. "It is done," they said. "The fortress is yours. The core accepts you as guardian and heir. The empire of humans begins today." Daniel looked at his daughter. She was smiling, her eyes shining with determination far older than her age. For years they had been mocked. People had laughed at their inheritance, called it worthless junk, a broken ruin. But now, those same people would see them as something else entirely. Leaders, protectors, rulers. Later, as father and daughter stood together at the fortress window, watching the stars stretch before them, Daniel placed a hand on Lila's shoulder. "You did well, kiddo," she smiled. "We did it together, Dad." He looked out at the endless galaxies beyond. For the first time in years, hope filled his heart. Maybe this is what we were meant for. Maybe this is our new beginning. The fortress hummed around them, alive and powerful, as if agreeing with his words, and somewhere deep in the stars, whispers began to spread. The soldier and his daughter who had been mocked had risen, not as beggars, not as forgotten, but as the first rulers of a new human empire.